Dear Tom, I went down to Railway Pier today. The ships look quite splendid, don't they? Best wishes to you and Jean. George.
At the time of white settlement, the area now known as Port Melbourne was a sandy, swampy place, much influenced by the Yarra River. In the 1830s, the river followed a winding course, which made it extremely difficult to navigate. It was easier, quicker and cheaper to walk overland than to take that journey up the river by ship. Wilbraham Frederick Evelyn Liardet was an enterprising early settler in Port Melbourne. He arrived in 1839 on board the ship called the William Metcalfe, accompanied by his wife and children. Liardet found business opportunities in people's needs. He built the Pier Hotel and a small jetty to provide ferry and mail services. The gold rush of the 1850s made it imperative that improved transport connections from the bay to Melbourne be created. A writer of the time stated this: "As many as 2,000 new people might arrive in a week. The bay was clogged with ships." Some walked to the goldfields. Others, with greater means, went by carriage service offered by Cobb and Company. Prominent Melbourne businessmen founded the Melbourne and Hobsons Bay Railway Company to fund and build a railway to transport people and goods directly to Melbourne. The line was the first steam-hauled railway in Australia and was opened in 1854. The locomotive ordered from England had not arrived in time, so the engine was built locally in record time. Trains travelled directly onto the railway pier. The railway supported the establishment of various industries, which located themselves nearby, as well as being an extremely busy passenger railway with half-hourly services. By the turn of the 20th century, Railway Pier was no longer meeting the growing demand for shipping accommodation, and pressure mounted for improved facilities. A new railway pier was built between 1912 and 1915. It was renamed Princess Pier after the visit of the Prince of Wales in 1920. Still, there was not enough capacity. Railway Pier was completely rebuilt in the 1930s. The Twin Station and Princess Piers, with their mirrored gatehouses and terminal buildings, were two of the longest timber-piled piers in the world and could accommodate up to 8 ships at any one time. Port Melbourne's piers have seen every generation of shipping, from sail to steam and diesel. At the end of Bay Street was Town Pier, where the last ship berthed in 1931 and which was demolished in 1956. Black coal from Newcastle was delivered at Town Pier and taken by horse tramway to gasworks where it was baked into gas. Ports' piers declined in importance with the advent of air travel and containerisation. The Australis was the last passenger ship to call at Princess Pier in 1977. Port Melbourne was not only the arrival and departure point for ocean travel and freight, but also for bay excursions and holidays. The paddle steamers Ozone, Hygeia and Wiruna carried many a picnic and party from wing piers off the rebuilt Station Pier. They would go down the bay to Sorrento and Queenscliff and to holiday destinations on the Mornington Peninsula. Horses played an essential role in heavy freight to and from the piers. The few horse troughs that remain throughout port are a reminder of the crucial role they played. Horses were used for every kind of transport task, including home deliveries of groceries and milk. The last working horse in Port Melbourne was Jack. He delivered milk for Claude Butcher into the late 1980s. The horses knew the round as well as their owners. They knew where to stop and start. Children made good friends with some of these horses. Before the Second World War, few people could afford to own cars. With many factories close by, it was common for people to walk, take the train or cable car, or ride a bicycle to work. As well as the railway line, cable trams ran down Bay Street to the car shed. This tram depot was at the corner of Beach and Donaldson Streets between 1890 and 1937. A cable tram had no power to move on its own. It was the cable itself which moved, driven by gigantic steam-powered wheels at the engine house in City Road. The strong, continuous loop of cable moved steadily through a space below the slot in the street, through which a gripping mechanism reached to attach the tram onto that moving cable. In due course, cable trams were replaced by buses. The bus depot was at the southern end of Bay Street. After the Second World War, cars became more affordable, particularly with the Holden manufactured locally at Fisherman's Bend plant. Trains continued to run on the Port Melbourne line until 1987, when they were replaced by the light rail. The railway and piers have profoundly influenced the shape of Port Melbourne up to the present day. When shipping and associated heavy industries began to decline in the 1980s, the area around the piers gave way to the residential development of the Beacon Cove estate, with the light rail service as its focal point. Cruise ships now berth at Station Pier. 66 cruise ships with over 200,000 passengers and crew were expected during the 2013-14 season. Almost 80 cruise ships were scheduled to visit Station Pier in 2014-15. Walking and cycling are, once again, popular ways of getting around. Freight of every kind is now carried by trucks large and small, from web dock to customers around metropolitan Melbourne and beyond.